Let's explore a key debate in the digital world: open source versus closed source software, and why transparency can sometimes be misleading. Imagine a world where the code powering your daily apps is either freely accessible for scrutiny and improvement by anyone, or locked away, controlled by a single entity. This choice affects technology, trust in society, new ideas, and who has control over technology. Open source software is software that is released under a license that gives users the freedom to access, modify, and distribute the source code. Closed source keeps the code private, usually limited to its owner. It restricts access to the developing company or a select few. This difference impacts access to tools, fairness, and responsibility. Open source builds teams that share knowledge and make tech available to all. However, it can reveal weak spots. Closed source offers reliable products, but users depend on the responsible company and have less oversight. People often see open source as fully open and accountable, but this can be an illusion. While open source allows code inspection, critical elements like training data in AI-driven systems or proprietary datasets remain hidden, leading to selective transparency. Closed source software often conceals underlying problems, but it provides users with convenient tools and a streamlined experience, usually without requiring them to deal with technical complexity. Companies might share only some code sections to appear transparent, while keeping biases or proprietary information a secret. This can harm society by breaking trust when openness is not genuine. Closed source is often preferred because it offers steady support, fewer bugs, and ways to generate financial income for growth. This can slow down new ideas in poor areas by charging for access. Open source helps teamwork worldwide, but needs support for its maintenance, which can increase gaps in technical comprehension. Open source makes up a big part of today's software. Studies show 70 to 90% of apps use open source components. Yet, closed source dominates in consumer-facing IT areas, such as operating systems for personal devices and enterprise tools, where proprietary solutions hold over 60% market share in sectors like desktop software. But let us take a look to social media platforms. Generally, they use a recommendation algorithm to offer their audiences a personal selection of content according to their behavior. The algorithms utilize machine learning to analyze interactions such as likes, shares, and viewing time to predict and prioritize posts that generate maximum engagement. To illustrate, they gather users with comparable interests and allocate the most reactionary content. These platforms can bring people together, but even more often, they divide. They push extreme content, creating bubbles where users see only content they agree with, which increases splits in viewpoints. Even if social media algorithms are open-sourced, persistent problems arise. Making the code open for scrutiny does not guarantee the prevention of biases arising from the training data or exploitation by companies. This exact concern was highlighted in the debate over Elon Musk's plan to make the Twitter algorithm open source, as experts argued that releasing the code without its training data would fail to provide meaningful transparency. This has some societal effects. Openly available algorithms might empower community-driven fixes, reducing monopolistic control. However, they risk leading to harm, like misinformation, if not governed well. Closed source protects intellectual property, but enables unchecked influence over public discourse. Have a look at X, formerly known as Twitter, and Threads as an example of open versus closed source software. X shared some algorithm code in 2023, showing how it ranks posts by likes and shares. But key parts of the data stay private. X's partial openness allows checks from outside, building trust and fostering innovation. But it has not stopped problems like fake accounts. The power dynamic also remains complex. By withholding key training data, X maintains ultimate control, potentially creating an illusion of community collaboration, while the company still dictates the platform's core functions. In comparison, Threads uses a closed algorithm linked to Instagram for custom feeds, with no public code. Threads, being a closed-source platform, centralizes complete algorithmic control within its parent company, Meta. This allows for a stable and streamlined user experience, but limits transparency, leaving users with little insight into why they see certain content and no input on platform changes. This model concentrates power, enabling the company to wield unchecked influence over public discourse. Aside from the discussion about closed versus open source software, we should briefly touch on another aspect, namely the need for transparency. Social media tends to drive divisions between people by pushing controversial content for engagement. This creates echo chambers, leading to greater societal divides. The network effect makes the problem worse. The more people use the sites, the more value they offer. On the other hand, small sites that lack a high number of users struggle. There are major risks that come with a lack of transparency in how data on a social media platform is used. Take the case of Cambridge Analytica, which collected data from over 50 million users for targeted ads. The company was responsible for influencing elections in many countries around the world in favor of their clients. Closed practices like this undermine the trustworthiness of democracy. Theoretically, a closed system's owner has the power to prevent or stop abuse, but a lack of oversight can enable scandals like Cambridge Analytica to flourish in secret. In contrast, an open system provides the transparency necessary for the public to identify and challenge such misuse. Throughout this exploration, the societal impacts of open versus closed source are evident. Open source can democratize access and promote innovation and community-driven solutions for underrepresented communities. However, it requires resources for security, which it tends to lack due to decentralized funding. Envisioning a perfect social media platform invites reflection. What if it combined clear algorithms with privacy controls, leading to genuine connections without harm? Challenges include balancing engagement with mental health, controlling misinformation, while upholding free speech. The debate between open and closed source codes highlights how software choices shape our interconnected world. This should lead us to think about the true value of transparency and the risks of privacy. How might full algorithmic openness alter societal divides? What role should regulations play in ensuring fair access? What are some ways network effects can build inclusive sites? To summarize, on the one hand, it is certainly desirable to know more about how code behaves. But on the other hand, this can also lead to further misuse. What remains is that society must address the issue of minimum necessary transparency. This means that it would be necessary for a defined group to have access to code in order to assess whether it behaves in accordance with ethical guidelines and rules. This debate is more important than ever, especially in the age of artificial intelligence.